stations are tuned into.
You're listening to Business Talk Radio, where we take business to the next level.
Today's show is sponsored by Dr. Jacalyn. Take charge of your life personally, financially, and professionally. Visit drjacalyn.com to book an appointment today.
Hello, and welcome to Rapping with Dr. Jacalyn live on Business Talk Radio, Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Twitch. We are thrilled to be with you today, and we've got a really great show for you. I am your host and executive producer, Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck, and our show today is all about hope, inspiration, and stories of overcoming adversity. With me today is my guest, Jamie Gannon, live from Long Island, New York. Jamie, welcome to the program.
Thank you. How are you?
I'm doing well, thanks. It's great to see you. And Jamie is an adjunct professor at Five Towns College. He's also an actor, and he's an acting instructor, which is really kind of cool. So are we going to get the real Jamie today, or are we going to get the Jamie the actor?
No characters today.
Well, that's fantastic. So you've had quite a journey. And we were introduced by Mindy Thomas. So shout out to Mindy for connecting us. I really appreciate that.
Amen.
So Jamie, would you share your story? You've overcome quite a bit in your life, and I'd like to hear you use your own words about what you've been through.
So I grew up right outside of Philadelphia, and when I got out of school, and I went to Penn State undergrad, and within 6 months, I just lucked into a great manager and an agent. And a year later, I was in Los Angeles, living my dream as a professional actor. I was studying with a world-class teacher. I was working professionally in film, television, theater, voiceover. And 20 years ago last week, I was diagnosed with a golf ball-sized brain tumor. So that kind of sent things in a very sharp left turn.
I can imagine. My gosh. So what happened? What did you do?
My mother-in-law was in town for Thanksgiving, and I had these very bad symptoms, which I refused to kind of admit. And she's like, "We're taking you to Cedars-Sinai." And, they did some tests. Next thing I know, a neurosurgeon kind of breezes into my room, and he says, "You have a large tumor in the back of your head."
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
What does it feel like to get information like that? And just blatantly put it out there.
I laughed right in his face. It was like a Monty Python skit, honestly. I mean, I knew it was, at times I wondered if I was being punked, if there was hidden cameras, but I knew I had really serious symptoms, and it was very surreal. Like, part of my brain understood what was going on, and another part of my brain was completely in denial. I remember saying to his intern, like, "Does this guy, I'm 27, I'm healthy. Does this guy know what's going on?" So he said, "Would you like to see your MRI?" And I said, "Yeah." And we looked at the MRI, and I pointed to this tiny little spot, and I said, "What, this?" He goes, "Oh, no, this." And what he pointed to was so big, I thought it was part of my brain.
Oh, my gosh.
So, wow. Yeah, the next day, 8.5 hours of brain surgery.
Oh, my gosh. Jamie, I can't even believe that. Can you share with us, what were your symptoms?
They progressed over a month. It started with what felt like a pinched nerve, and my day job as an actor was at a hotel. I was carrying bags and driving cars. I thought I pinched a nerve, and I did this little kind of junky horror film, and there's a scene in the beginning where I'm supposed to have woken up from a nightmare, and my girlfriend's like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "Yeah," and it seems like, oh, I'm just sore, but that actually was a twinge of the brain tumor saved forever on film.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so that progressed, and the headaches got worse, and at the worst of it, at the very end, it was hard to sometimes to walk with my head upright, and I would kind of start to vomit every now and then, no matter what I ate or drank. And when I finally got my oncologist to admit it, because they don't like to say this stuff, he said, "Yeah, you were about 2 days away from dying."
Oh my gosh. And look at you today, handsome, smiling, accomplished.
Thank you. Yeah, a lot of miracles in that story.
So basically that operation saved your life.
Yes.
And if it hadn't been for your mother-in-law, you may have delayed and not done anything.
I think that's probably what would have happened. Yeah.
So, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I was seeing a network chiropractor because I had had a really good experience with one a year before in a different state, and I thought they were all this good. And he was like, yeah, your body's processing emotions, and he would adjust me and I'd feel a little better, but I'd still be on the couch for like hours at a time. So yeah, my mother-in-law definitely saved my life. I call her my airbag.
Oh my goodness. Well, I'm so glad that you're here today and you're able to share this story. And I think it's so timely because with COVID, people are not going to the doctor like they should be going. They're not getting their checkups. And you're a perfect example of somebody whose life was saved by getting to the right doctor and having the right procedure.
Absolutely.
So a shout out to your physician. Do you remember that person's name? It's your surgeon.
I do. Dr. Wouter Shevink was my neurosurgeon. Dr. Solomon Hamburg was my oncologist, and Dr. Beruz Hakimian was my radiation oncologist.
Well, thank God for all of them.
But I also have to give a shout out to Master Joe, because Master Joe would give me medical Qigong treatments every week, and that's what allowed me to make it through 18 months of chemo.
Well, I want to get into that about alternative medicine and hear more about that. I do want to give out the call-in number if you're out there and you want to call in with a question for Jamie. The number to call is area code 631-730-5468. And in addition, if you are watching on Facebook or LinkedIn, please feel free to put a comment and we will read it out. So here we have something from a Facebook user. What is your biggest takeaway?
Oh, well, it took a long time to get there, but for a long time I thought my brain tumor absolutely wrecked my life. And it took me a while to get there, but I now think it probably is the greatest gift I was ever given.
Incredible. Incredible. So how do you feel, and I realize it's 20 years, how do you feel that you've changed as a result of this?
Wow. Well, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, I've changed. Physically, I eat a whole food plant-based diet, and I practice Qigong several times a week. Mentally, I know that I understand that the way I was living, had I not had the tumor, was totally unhealthy. I was very much a workaholic and really obsessed with my career and didn't have a lot of joy in my life. Emotionally, there was so many people that reached out and cared for me in so many ways when I was ill that it healed my heart. And spiritually, I have a much stronger faith in God.
Beautiful. So we have another question, which I kind of feel like you just answered, but what would you have told your younger self knowing what you know now?
Probably get a hobby.
Don't work all the time, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's a paradox. I tell this to my students. On one hand, you have to eat, sleep, and breathe acting. But on the other hand, at the same time, you have to have something that gives you joy that has nothing to do with it. And find some time for that. So, like, I probably should have learned to surf.
Learn to surf. I love that. That's great. My cousin's really active in surfing, which is, I think it's really challenging and difficult. I don't know. To me, I would think that wasn't a hobby. That would be more like a torture.
No, when I was on chemo about halfway through, I just got sick of being weak. And our next door neighbor, good friends of ours, he was a lifelong surfer. And he took me out several times. We went to San Onofre, we went to Malibu, we went a couple places. So, for an East Coast boy, that was a big deal.
Oh, yes, yes. That's where my cousin is, actually, out in Malibu. So Chris actually just said that he should follow that advice. Chris from Business Talk Radio. So he's working all the time, but he's the one who keeps us here on the Radio Land airwaves. So I want to talk to you about Qigong and how, first of all, what is that for people who don't know?
Qigong is, depending on who you ask, between 2,000 and 5,000 years old. It was something else before that. The name Qigong is probably from the 50s. What it translates to roughly is energy work. Another translation is benefits acquired through persistence and practice. And if you know Tai Chi, Qigong is the internal energy work that's applied to the external form. So it's getting in touch with our energetic self, and we all have one, and being aware of it, and then doing things to strengthen it.
Jamie, is Qigong something that a person can do without the help of anyone else or anything else?
That's one of the great things about it. Once you learn how to do it, which is honestly, it's a minimal investment, you can do it almost anywhere with no special clothing or special equipment or special anything, and you can have it for life.
And does it compare at all to meditation, or are they two totally different disciplines?
No, there's a meditative aspect in a lot of the moves. You know, the first person I learned from was Master Joe. The person I learned from most recently is Sifu Richard Clear, and he talks about when you're doing all of it, he says, be here now, which is a meditative thing. When your mind starts to wander, come back and be here now. In Qigong, it's be in the body. In meditation, it might be just to watch the thoughts and release them.
That makes sense. Someone once said to me, keep your mind where your feet are. And I think that's very difficult. It's actually something that you have to practice, I would think. And also with meditation, thoughts do come up and you have to bring yourself back. So it sounds like Qigong is something similar in that regard.
Yeah, I mean, when I advocate meditation for my acting students, and I try and draw parallels to that and the craft, because when you're meditating, if you're having thoughts coming up, you can't be like, oh God, I'm thinking again. That's a waste. You just go up, thinking, back to the breath, thinking, up, back to the, identify it, release it, back to the breath. And if you're working on acting, you can't be like, oh, I didn't hit that moment. You go, up, okay, that's not it, back to the work.
And you mentioned earlier that before you had been diagnosed with brain cancer, that you had unhealthy lifestyle choices. And since then, you've made some major changes. So let's, in addition to the Qigong, let's talk about the nutrition, the healthy way of eating, the plant-based diet. What does that look like for you?
So the chemotherapy really wrecked my digestion and gave me a lot of side effects to where going to the bathroom was very painful. And my best friend, Alex Ballar, who we met in Hollywood, but he grew up like maybe 10 minutes from where I live now. He was vegan, and he was like, bro, you gotta go vegan. I'm like, oh, I don't know, man. Like, I'm from Philly. Like, I grew up on cheesesteaks and hoagies, you know? But every time I eliminated an animal product and replaced it with a plant-based product, I felt better. And I wasn't in pain, and didn't have inflammation, and I had a clearer mind, and it just progressed one thing after another. So it's been almost 10 years that I've been plant-based.
That's tremendous. I have ulcerative colitis, and I'd stopped eating meat for about 10 years. And then this summer I started eating meat again, and I noticed a direct correlation. When I would eat the meat, I was really in pain. So no more meat.
Yeah, it's something that it's a big part of my cancer coaching, and it's probably one of the most difficult aspects, because people, they believe they want to get well, they believe they want to protect themselves, and they can mentally understand, okay, all these studies, all this really good science shows the direct correlation, but the emotional part of us hears something different. If I say meat's bad for you, and you go, oh, okay, the emotional part of you goes, your mother's meatballs are bad. And you're like, don't talk about my mother.
So, Jamie, you just brought up something that I think is really important. You went through this horrific diagnosis, surgery, recovery. So not only you mentioned about the chemo wrecking your body physically, but you've been on quite a journey emotionally as well. And you were just touching on that. So you changed the way that you were eating. You tried to find time for a hobby or things that you would enjoy. What else have you done for this transformation to who you are today?
You know, it was honestly, looking back on it, it really was about 10 years before I kind of was like, I rebuilt myself and was happy again. And I think it's the whole is truly greater than some of its parts. So when I coach people, you know, there's nutrition, there's, I say, bliss-based exercise, because if you hate the treadmill, don't get on the treadmill. Find something you enjoy moving your body for. There's conscious thought, meaning really watching what you think and identifying thoughts. They call it reframing in psychology. My wife's a therapist. So really noticing, paying attention, and doing the work to, oh, wow, I still think that, or just catching it. Whether it's driving, like, nice left turn, buddy, and catching that and reframing that, or the way I talk to my kids, or the way I talk to myself. And then spiritually, you know, a big part of it for me is prayer and connection with God.
I just got my meditation certification on Monday, and a lot of what we focused on is the Buddhist philosophy: right thought, right action, right speech. There are 8 of them, but so it is really a whole transformation that takes work. It takes effort, because you have to reframe, as you said, and you have to retrain the brain.
Yeah, it's a very gradual. It's a I guess maybe accretion, sort of like think of like layers in geological stone. If you cut a piece of stone, you see the layers over the years. You're laying down beneficial dust every day, and it seems like dust. Like, all I laid down today was dust, but after days and weeks and months and years, you build a wall. Right.
Very well said. We've got to take a break and hear from our sponsors so we can pay a few bills. And I was so entrenched, I really missed when we were supposed to get a break. So we could be here talking for a long time. We'll be right back. The number to call in again is 631-730-5468. And keep those comments coming: Facebook, Twitch, and LinkedIn. We'll be right back with Jamie Gannon here on Rapping with Dr. Jacalyn.
Hey everybody, my name is Ralph Graves Jr. I'm the host of the Ralph Graves Jr. Show, and I want to invite you to pick up my book, Unstoppable. I wrote a book called Unstoppable. It's 7 universal laws that will transform how you pursue and achieve success. The one thing that my 20 years of law enforcement has taught me is that no matter who you are, we are all governed by universal laws, like gravity. But in this book, we're going to talk about laws like the law of forgiveness, laws like the law of control, the law of intelligent practice, the law of expectancy. I was able to see how those, no matter what their background was, those who identified and treated these laws with respect, they were able to go on and lead successful lives. So pick up this book, and you can go ahead and pick it up at Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, RalphGravesJr.com, where anywhere where fine books are sold. Thank you.
There are 7.7 billion people on Earth today. 40% of these people are under the age of 25. Young adults are the most fertile mission field in the world today. In Scripture, we see Jesus pouring his life into 12 young adults who he equipped to change the world and all of history. Like Jesus, we believe that the best approach to reach the world with the gospel is to invest in young, emerging leaders and equip them to build disciple-making movements. Concentric is the notion of surrounding and sharing a common center. Our center is the model and strategy of Jesus for both leadership development and ministry formation. As a global alliance, we provide equipping in biblical leadership based on Jesus' example in the New Testament. Jesus modeled for us how to make disciples that reproduce. Focusing on leadership development is key to creating movements that spread the gospel and Jesus' disciple-making strategy to young leaders around the globe. Our Ministry Alliance partners are actively equipping leaders and building movements of multiplication that reproduce the life of Christ. Join us today to equip young leaders with Jesus' strategy that will change cities and nations.
The session that we had with BCAT was really entertaining and enlightening. We were able to put together some very specific steps that we as individuals can take, and it was really fun to all come together and see sort of where we're going as a team and how we can all get there together.
tremendous experience with the BCAT partners. One of the challenges that we have as an organization is to make sure that we have the right people in the right chairs doing the right thing. To do that well, you have to have synergy. You can try to dream up ways to make sure that your group does that, or you can rely on experts. We would recommend BCAT partners to anybody who's looking to take their organization to the next level.
Academy Sedan and Limo is a full-service transportation company serving the Philadelphia metropolitan area with full knowledge of the New York City, Baltimore, and Washington, D.C. areas. We pride ourselves on being the most dependable, conscientious company in the industry. Our always on-time service and dependable pricing make us the company to call for any event or occasion. Our vehicles can accommodate any size party for any occasion. Our vehicles range from four-door sedans to SUVs to minivans to limo buses to full-size tour buses and can accommodate groups of 2 to 100. We offer airport shuttle service or over-the-road service without limitation regarding mileage or time, and no drive is too long or too far. So if you find yourself in need of transportation of any type with any vehicle, give us a call at 610-842-4564 and let us show you what a real transportation company can do for you.
Use code ACADEMY2020 to receive 20% off your first 3 rides, including parking and tolls.
Ladies and gentlemen, here it is. The most listened to radio show on the planet. Even the other stations are tuned in too.
You're listening to Business Talk Radio, where we take business to the next level.
Welcome back to Rapping with Dr. Jacalyn, live here on Business Talk Radio, Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Twitch. We are so thrilled to have Jamie Gannon live from New York. I just love saying that. He's a brain cancer survivor. He just shared his unbelievable story with us. He's also an adjunct professor. He's an actor, and he's an acting instructor, and also a coach. So, Jamie, I don't know how you have time for all these things, but you're still smiling, which is great. Share with us. I know you have the ability to help others because of what you've been through. And so when people come to you and they're asking for advice, they've just gotten a cancer diagnosis, how do you work with them?
Well, it depends. I mentor with Immerman Angels and the American Brain Tumor Association. That's just, they assign me someone, and honestly, they rarely find someone because they try and find an exact match, and my brain tumor was so rare that they rarely get anyone. If someone comes to me for coaching, I really see it from a coaching point of view. Life coaches get a bad stigma because some people think they're the equivalent of an unlicensed therapist. And I make it very clear that I'm there to help them figure out what their health and wellness goals are, and then help them craft the most effective plans to get there. And then finally, keep them responsible for moving on those goals. So while I'm definitely there to comfort and to empathize, it's not therapy, it's work.
And they have to actually do the work, correct?
Correct.
That's, I think, one of the misnomers as a coach, that, people come to you and I think they expect they're going to have a 1-hour session, some magic wand is going to be waved and everything's going to be changed, but they don't realize that in order to make a change, they have to actually want the change and they have to do the work.
That's right. That's right.
So how would you say that correlates to becoming an actor as an instructor? How do you mentor your students?
So that's one of the things I love about teaching acting is it's almost from a therapeutic point of view, it's almost reparenting myself, because I get to tell these kids all the stuff that I wish someone had told me when I was 20 or 21. It's one thing to learn the craft of acting. I mean, my teacher, Arthur Mendoza, is a protege of Stella Adler. She trained thousands of actors, but she only ever taught 2 people to teach it. And my teacher's one of them. So I can give them the craft, but then there's all this other stuff like, okay, you got to look out for this. You got to watch out for that. You got to fix this. You got to change to kind of get them prepared.
And in your experience, are you born with the talent to be an actor, or is it something, obviously as a teacher, there's certain things to learn, but do you have to have some innate talent?
So my teacher defined talent as a burning, unquenchable desire to act. So there's some people who are just gifted, but I personally knew several people in LA who were really, really gifted, but they just couldn't pull it together. They didn't have the discipline or the focus or some other deep problem. And I've met other people who weren't the most talented person in the room, but they worked so hard and they loved it so much that they made themselves successful.
And share with us where you currently teach, Five Towns College, and what that program looks like there.
So it's a small program. It's a small private college in Dix Hills, and I'm an adjunct professor there. I teach this semester. I'm teaching Stella Adler technique. I'm teaching acting for the camera, and then in the fall, and so I'm also teaching a theater history class. And in the spring, I'll be teaching their senior showcase and continuing with the Stella class. So currently, I'm an adjunct professor. I'm pursuing my master's, which I didn't know if I could ever do that. And I'm waiting to hear, fingers crossed, from the University of Idaho, if they're listening, if I get accepted to the program, because that's an online MFA, which is a very new thing. And it's you really can't teach at a university level without a terminal degree, and that would be an MFA. So it would open up permanent doors for me in this.
And that's Masters of Fine Arts?
Correct.
And how long is that program?
It's a 3-year program.
3 years, and all online?
For me. So the way they do it, the reason it was not possible in the past is an acting MFA, you're really acting 8 a.m. to 8 o'clock at night, 5 days a week. And if you're not acting, you're either rehearsing or learning lines or teaching non-majors. So to do that with a wife and kids at 47, forget it. It's not going to happen. So this is 1/3 of it is Zoom classes. They actually hold they hold classes on ground in Moscow, Idaho, where they're younger people taking a master's, but for people like myself with experience professionally and otherwise, 1/3 of it is going to their classes, 1/3 of it is developing projects with your advisor, and the final third is credit for what you're already doing, in my case, teaching and private coaching.
And I think it's interesting for you to share for people watching and listening. You've got a number of balls in the air, right? And some people have a tough time with one thing. How do you structure your day so that you're able to complete all these things at a high level?
On my best days, I plan the night before what I'm going to focus on, and I'll even prep my morning smoothie and my morning cereal the night before. And if I really would love to get 8 hours of sleep and then wake up by 6 if I can. And then it's a question of being flexible. Sort of, there's a lot of different theories, but one big one I've seen over and over again is the things that you really want to be creative about, you want to do first in the day when you're fresh, when your mind's open. And answering emails and doing kind of the mechanics of things you have to do, you want to kind of structure that for the afternoon. But along the way, there's a lot of fluidity, and you have to remind yourself, like, okay, now I need to move my body. Now I need to eat healthy food. Now I'm going to come back to this, but I'm not really feeling this right now. But this is similar. I'll do that. So it's tricky because you can get pulled in the wrong direction, and it can really throw your day off.
Very good point. We have somebody from Twitch who has a comment. I don't know if it's someone you know. Squirrel Eye. Sorry to be late. Thought it was a 5:30 start time. Friend of yours?
I don't know Squirrel Eye. I might. I don't know.
Well, thank you, Squirrel Eye. We appreciate you watching the program. So, Jamie, I heard somebody today ask this question, and I'm wondering what your answer would be. Apparently, the length of time it takes for a person to get out of bed once they wake up, the amount of time it takes for you to actually have your feet hit the floor, pretty much can be, what's the word? It can pretty much determine how much you're looking forward to your day. So if you wake up and you stay in bed for 10 minutes versus if you wake up and your feet hit the floor right away, the person with the feet on the ground, they're the ones that are really excited about the day and are probably going to have a positive outcome. What are your thoughts on that?
I've become not wary, but I've become much more careful about anecdotal evidence in the last few years. While what you said resonates, and I think, yeah, that makes sense. I think it's probably a little different for everyone, and I'm a big fan of double-blind, placebo-controlled tests these days. And it changes, right? Because some days I'm like up and at 'em because I have to be. Some days I'm up and at 'em because I'm excited. Some days I'll take that extra 10 minutes because maybe I beat myself up the day before, and I got to be kind to myself this day.
Right. I know with me, because I take blood pressure medicine, that I'm up, but I can't zip out of bed immediately because I could get all messed up with the blood pressure. So we have to take a break now, and I'm actually excited because we are going to hear from Mindy Thomas at Thomas Career Consulting. Mindy is such a sweetheart, and she introduced us. And so let's give a little shout out to Mindy, and let's see what Mindy's been up to.
She was the best.
Hi, everyone. I'm Mindy Thomas, founder of Thomas Career Consulting. If you are dealing with the stress of having been terminated or being laid off, considering a career change, or you simply cannot land a job with your current resume, you came to the right place. My professional expertise centers on being trained in two distinct areas: career counseling and career marketing. I am also the host of Career Chat, a weekly talk show which appears on RVN TV. My end game is helping you to overcome the self-doubt, the fear, and the other barriers you are facing right now in a very tricky, perplexing, and complicated job market. .5 seconds. That's how much time it takes a recruiter to scan your resume. On top of that, electronic applicant tracking systems may reject you even if you have the skills, education, and experience. I teach you how to win when you absolutely have to. My resume writing practice is built on a personalized, collaborative, and strategic approach that showcases your accomplishments in a way to get you noticed. At the center of my strategy is identifying your strengths and targeted keywords to make you stand out from the competition. As a professional resume writer, I know what it takes to impress even the most discriminating hiring manager. Changing careers, launching a new one, overwhelmed or stuck in a dead-end job? I have more than 2 decades of experience as a Georgetown-trained leadership coach, resume writer, career counselor, and recruiter. So whether you're a student, a top executive, or simply struggling to find your own career identity and you're feeling lost, you can count on me to lead you through the journey of self-discovery. I will formulate a step-by-step plan that begins with the assessment of your skills, your interests, your values, and your personality, and then explore the opportunities that are best suited to align with you. In essence, what makes sense for you? With 25 years of business experience, I have been privileged to work with a diverse group of adults, from young high school students to the millennials, the Generation X, Y, and Z, and boomers. Let me put that to work for you.
Ladies and gentlemen, here it is, the most listened to radio show on the planet. Even the other stations are tuned in too.
You're listening to Business Talk Radio, where we take business to the next level.
Today's show is sponsored by Dr. Jacalyn. Take charge of your life personally, financially, and professionally. Visit drjacalyn.com to book an appointment today.
Welcome back to Rapping with Dr. Jacalyn, live on Business Talk Radio and social media. We are here with Jamie Gannon. Jamie, wasn't Mindy fantastic?
You know, I've worked with Mindy twice, and I told you there was about a 10-year period where I was really trying to figure things out. And she is absolutely top notch in career consulting and resume writing. I highly recommend her.
And she is a beautiful person inside and out. She's just such a sweetheart. She's connected me with so many people, and I hope you're having a great time out there in Vegas, Mindy. Enjoy. So, Jamie, we're coming to the top of the hour for our show, and you have so much to share. Before we get into another question, I just want to make sure we give your contact information. And for people out there listening, Jamie is an adjunct professor at Five Towns College, and you can reach him at jamie.gannon@gmail.com. It's JAMIE.GANNON@gmail. So, actor, acting instructor, coach, brain cancer survivor. What else is going on with you?
Been married for 20 years, and I'm a father of 2 children.
Beautiful. The most important things, right?
Absolutely.
So, Jamie, what would you say to everyone out there watching or listening, and maybe they're not feeling quite right? Maybe they have some concerns about their health because things have changed, but we say to ourselves, it's going to be fine. It's my nerves. It's the stress because of the pandemic. What would you say to people based on what you've been through?
I would say that putting in even a minimal amount of actual effort, not just thinking about it, but actually doing something, can have profound effects on your health. So just starting where you're at and saying, okay, what can I handle changing right now? Because anyone who tries to do it overnight will fail. It is a marathon, it's not a sprint. But if you can find little things and change them, and then really make it a part of your life, then you find the next thing, and then the next thing. And before you know it, you've made significant growth in your health.
Wonderful. And if we want to learn more about Qigong, where can we go to find information about that?
Sifu Richard Clear, clearstaichi.com. He does everything online. He is he's a master. He's got 40 years experience. I can personally vouch that he's legit. Master Zhou, www.masterzhou.com. And he also has a documentary. He's a living treasure. He's a Wudong trained grandmaster. And you can just hit me up. I'm happy to answer questions.
And if people are interested in taking one of your acting classes, or you also said you teach, did you say art history?
No, theater history is one of the classes I teach. So I also coach privately for people who are working professionally and they have auditions and they want to coach, or they've landed a role and they need a coach. I help people with that. And I'm considering starting a private class as well. But one-on-one coaching is usually just helping people with auditions and roles that they're preparing for.
So do they have to be in the New York area, or can you do this virtually through Zoom or some other platform?
I do it effectively over Zoom. I prefer it in person. There's as one of my mentors says, like there's not as much juice in the room when you're doing it over Zoom, because a lot of it is energetic, or maybe it's micro expressions, but you get an energy and you understand the person and you can help them on. It's not just about saying the lines and making them sound real. It's a whole lot of other stuff going on.
And the best way, again, to reach you is jamie.gannon@gmail.com.
Yes.
And they can find you on LinkedIn too.
Correct.
Well, Jamie, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the program, and I really applaud you for coming forward and being transparent and being real and sharing your story, because that's what we all need. It gives people courage and strength to come forward and realize that they're not alone. So I really appreciate you.
Thank you so much for having me.
I will see you backstage. And thanks again, Jamie.
Thank you.
And to everyone out there watching, thank you so much. As I say every time, every show, we really do appreciate your loyalty. It's a complete pleasure and gift to be able to bring people to you who have been through some incredible stories and they're willing to share to help inspire others. We have some great news, which is, as of today, thanks to Chris Roberts at Business Talk Radio, we have our own channel, meaning that our shows are exclusively playing businesstalkradio1.com in Studio 6. So all day, all night, rapping with Dr. Jacalyn, all the way back to the beginning, my first interview when I was being interviewed by actually Chris, which is amazing, was in August of 2019. So all of the interviews, if you've been a guest on the program, then your show will be playing there. So thank you for being with us. One last announcement is we have a really cool event coming up. It's the Rapping with Dr. Jacalyn and Business Talk Radio present the 2021 Wealth of Health event. And so it will be a group of females who are going to present up to 15 minutes, something to help us set an intention and focus for 2021. So we do have a couple of positions open. It's completely free. If you're interested, you can contact me, and I'd be happy to speak with you and make sure that it's a good match. So my contact information is drjacalyn.com. That's my website, and you can reach me there. Also, we're always looking for guests to be on our program. We now have 4 shows on Business Talk Radio, which is really tremendous. So thanks again for being with us. I hope you have a beautiful Friday. Stay tuned. We have another really cool show coming up right after this one. And we look forward again to seeing you next time. Bye.